Are all workplaces toxic workplaces? If you keep finding yourself working for a toxic company with toxic bosses and toxic coworkers, and if you're wondering if non-toxic companies even exist, get a coffee, get cozy, and tap that like button because we're gonna get real about the real problem with toxic workplaces. Recently, I did a poll on my LinkedIn profile asking how many people have been in a toxic workplace. And friends, I was shocked by the results. 99% of survey respondents said that they had been in a toxic workplace at some point in their careers. Obviously, this is not scientific, it's not peer-reviewed. I'm not saying that these numbers are fully accurate, but what it did clearly demonstrate was the number of people that have been in a toxic workplace at some point in their career is very high, probably uncomfortably high. Knowing the statistic and the whole pretext of this video, are all companies toxic? I'm going to tell you right now, the answer is no. Not all companies are toxic, but you might be landing in only toxic work environments. And that's a problem because you can't keep going that way. The great news is this is a problem that we can solve. We just need to spot the pattern to break the toxic workplace cycle, which leads us into what the patterns are to look for and how you can escape them. The first toxic workplace pattern that I see all the time is missed red flags. Especially when I'm working with someone who is in a toxic work environment, they just want to get out. You could probably relate. And in that rush to escape, an opportunity comes along and it seems good. On paper, it's good. They're saying all the right things. And this made your brain sense the opportunity to have safety at work. However, this might be because you weren't watching for the signs or you didn't know what toxic company signs to look out for. I won't dig into what all the signs are because I have a whole video that you can watch after this one on signs of a toxic company so that you can avoid them. But especially if you are in the process of escaping or you are plotting your next move, I think this one is really important to watch. And that leads us to the second pattern, which is also very important when you are looking for your next job, especially when you are escaping a toxic work environment. And that toxic workplace pattern is mismatch or conflicting needs. We've talked before on my channel about how toxic workplaces come down to perspective. What's a feature for some is a bug for others. For example, respect is something that I value greatly. I don't mind a little bit of conflict, but respect in the process is crucial for me. The toxic company that I worked with, team members were openly fighting in the middle of the office. And it wasn't always civilized, and sometimes it even included name calling. For me, I didn't feel like this was respectful. However, it worked really well for those team members and they felt like that process was very productive for them. Maybe you're sitting there thinking I'm a drama queen for thinking that it was disrespectful. Or perhaps you're nodding your head and cringing because that is obvious toxic workplace behavior to you. My point is, this is entirely subjective. And if you want to avoid a toxic work environment for you, it's really important that you get clear on two things: the values that are important to you at work and the leadership style which you work best with. Knowing these two things can help you avoid a toxic workplace and actually make you more likely to end up at your dream job that doesn't turn into a nightmare. And this leads me into one of the most common patterns that I see for people that have been in a toxic work environment and have escaped it. And I'll call that pattern toxic workplace sensitivity. Y'all know that I'm not going to dance around or mince any words here. Being in a toxic work environment is traumatic. Literally, there is trauma because of a lack of psychological and sometimes physical safety. I know people who have been diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, and depression as a direct result of their experience working in a toxic workplace. Some of them might even be watching this video right now. When we experience trauma, there's something that you need to know about what happens with your brain and your body. They hold on to it. And when the dangers that you survived are detected, toxic job alarm bells will ring. Now, it could be totally valid, but several of the clients that I have worked with personally have had to go through a process of recalibration. Essentially because of the trauma that they had been through and were recovering from, their toxic workplace sensitivity was really, really high. If you remember the toxic workplace signs, once you've been in a toxic work environment, you are going to be very attuned to them. However, many of these same signs occasionally occur at companies that are not toxic at all. After all, companies are full of humans and us humans are flawed beings. Because you've been in a toxic work environment, you are going to be more aware of the toxic workplace signs, especially the ones that you've experienced. And when they're detected, your brain is going to go into fight, flight, or freeze mode. If you feel like you're not sure if you've properly calibrated or there's trauma that you need additional support to process, I highly recommend seeking the help of a counselor or a therapist in your process to recover from a toxic workplace. This is something that is not discussed enough and I think is really important. I also suggest working with a career coach or a career strategist such as myself, full of bias here, but working with someone who has expertise from a career perspective can help you interpret if what is happening to you is a toxic work environment or if it's some of your trauma coming up. While this is a pattern that I have seen with high frequency, it can be a hard one for you to spot on your own. However, now that you're aware of it, you may be able to notice when it happens. And when you do notice it, we need to do something about it because it is a nightmare if it goes untreated. Now, also drawing from that brings us into our fourth pattern of a toxic workplace, and that is learned behaviors. When you were in the toxic work environment, either consciously or subconsciously, you developed strategies to cope. For example, if you had a toxic boss who micromanaged everything that you did, you might have tried to cope by proactively communicating and giving more detail than what was really necessary. Or if you had a toxic coworker who gossiped all the time, you might have learned to deflect any question related to your personal life down to a question as simple as, how was your weekend? In your effort to stay out of their toxic office gossip. While these behaviors helped keep you safer in the toxic work environment, they became habits that might be staging a toxic work environment now. For example, let's go back to the toxic boss who's micromanaging example. Perhaps you're still over communicating in detail because it's a habit that you acquired in the toxic workplace. As a result, your new manager has set expectations about what you communicate, how you communicate, and even maybe assumptions about what you need in order to be successful. They maybe even adjusted how they typically function in order to better support you. And now, if you don't send that information, they're asking for the information, and that makes you feel micromanaged again. And the cycle repeats. Sometimes this can be easy to spot, like the example that I just gave you. And I'll overshare and I'll tell you my experience because mine was much deeper. Because I had a toxic boss, I had formed a deep mistrust with leadership. And because I couldn't trust leadership, they couldn't trust me. In order for me to fix that, I had to rebuild my ability to trust the people that I reported to. One thing I find to be very helpful in uncovering this pattern is doing a sanity check. Ask yourself, do my coworkers do this? Is this a reasonable expectation? Is this something I did before I was in the toxic work environment? Do I need to send detailed notes to outline everything discussed in the meeting so that I can't be undermined? Which I have a video about undermining coming up. Subscribe if you need that one. When you find any of these residual behaviors, address them. Which brings me to the final pattern that I want to talk to you about today when it comes to toxic workplaces. And I'm not saying it's you, but I'm saying we have to look under each rock, even if it's the one that's gonna make you wanna smash the thumbs down button. The fifth pattern we need to look at is it you? And don't get me wrong, I am by no means saying that you are a toxic person. I personally think you're awesome. But when you constantly find yourself in a toxic work environment, the constant isn't the toxic company, it's you. And this, my friend, is gonna take some bold reflection and accountability. Because maybe you're actually just really miserable doing what you do. And that misery in what you do is creating toxic work environments for you wherever you go. And maybe even others along the way. Or maybe you've just been so burned by a toxic company or a toxic boss or a toxic coworker, and you're walking around with a lot of resentment and a lot of anger. That's gonna make things toxic too. Look, I read every single comment that I get here on YouTube, even the ones that get filtered out. And friends, some of you I see are really hurting. And you're projecting that hurt and it's coming right back at you. Or your confidence has just been smashed at work by a toxic boss. And that toxic boss made you believe that you're not great at what you do. But you can rebuild that. This can all be fixed. This is one of the reasons why I talk so much about your unique awesomeness quotient, your UAQ. Because I know that you aren't watching this video because you don't care and because you have zero possibility and potential in your career. You are here because your potential is unlimited. Knowing what makes you awesome and rebuilding that belief in yourself is absolutely crucial, and it's gonna make you so much happier at work. If that sounds like something that you do need, I have a class that's totally for free that you can check out down below to help help you uncover your UAQ to help you rebuild your confidence at work. No matter what pattern you found yourself in, or if you found yourself in all of them, I want you to know you deserve to be valued at work, to be in and to contribute to a positive work environment, and to enjoy your job. You're there at least 40 hours a week. You shouldn't hate it. And one thing that I think really helps, especially once you have escaped a toxic work environment, is to raise your vibe by developing a positive attitude at work. I have a video that's going to help you do just that. You can go and check it out right here. If this video helped you uncover some patterns, even if they were really uncomfortable, let me know that it was helpful by clicking the like button. If you have any questions, drop them down below. I'm here to help you. If you haven't already, consider subscribing. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time, my friends. Bye for now.